So section 3.1 is the Cartesian coordinate system. We want to learn the Cartesian coordinate system, how to graph equations, and the formulas for distance and midpoint. Okay, so let's start out with the definition, which we already talked about in our review, but just for the sake of this, an ordered pair, which you call a point, but for this definition, it's an ordered pair. AB consists of two real numbers, A and B. For this point, okay, for this ordered pair, A is the first coordinate, it's the first coordinate, or as you said, the x coordinate, okay? B is the what coordinate? Second coordinate, or the y coordinate. Excellent. Definition. The Cartesian coordinate system, or the Cartesian plane is what most called it, consists of two perpendicular real number lines, each called an axis, intersecting at the 0 point of each line. Do you remember what that intersection point is called? The origin. Very good. It's called the origin. So just notation wise, let's set this up. We refer to this Cartesian plane as R cross R. This R represents what? All real numbers, right? So R cross R, or we write R squared. So that's typically how we refer to the Cartesian plane, okay? And as you said, whenever you take the x-axis and the y-axis, right, they're perpendicular, they intersect at this point, which you said is called the origin. Very good. So that point 0, 0 right here, that's called your origin. Okay. We have 4 different blocks. What are those blocks called?
Quadrants.
Quadrants. Good. They're quadrants, right? So this is quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2. Quadrant 3. And quadrant 4. Now, if we look at points or ordered pairs in the respective quadrants, then we know we have specific signs with those, right? What are the signs of the x and y coordinates?
Positive.
So we would have positive, positive. In quadrant 2,
Negative.
good. Quadrant 3,
Negative, negative.
good. In quadrant 4,
Positive, negative.
positive, negative. Good. Is everyone good here? So this comes from knowing that the numbers on the x-axis to the right of 0 are positive. The numbers above 0, the y coordinates here, would be positive. The numbers to the left of 0 on the x-axis are negative, and the numbers below 0 on the y-axis are negative. Okay? All right? So, take a couple minutes and plot those points. So I gave you a set of points: -4, 0, 0, -4, -3, 3, and 3, -3. I want you to plot those points and identify the quadrant where each point lies. So go ahead and do example 1. Okay, in the back, where's -4, 0? I see you pointing, but where's that? In the back. Go ahead. Let's be respectful. Quadrant 2. So we go over left, how many? 4, and then we just plot here because the y-coordinate is 0. So very good. Okay, so we're in quadrant 2. Okay, where is 0, -4? Quadrant 3. I heard quadrant 3, I heard quadrant 4. Which one? Quadrant 4. Why? Because the 0 is positive. Because the 0 is technically a positive here, right? So we're really on what axis? The y-axis. We're really on the y-axis. Okay? So we can label them. Labeling is important. So let's label. You have -3, 3. What quadrant is that in? 2. Good. So we go over left 3. How many we go up? 3 as well. Good. And then 3 -3 is in what quadrant? 4. So we go right 3 and where? Down 3. Good. Okay. So that's example 1. Questions? Okay. Example 2, graphing equations. Example 2, graphing equations. Determine the values of the missing entries in the table of ordered pairs, then plot the ordered pairs and sketch the graph. So we're doing a few things. Determine the values of the missing entries in the table of ordered pairs. So this is our table of ordered pairs. We have a T-chart or XY chart. Okay. So here I gave you y was equal to 0. I want you to find x. Here I gave you x is equal to 1. I want you to find y. And then so on. Fill in the blanks. Okay? Then once you have them, I want you to plot the points and then sketch the graph. So let's do this one together. We're not going to do all of them together because I want you to try it. But I'll get you started. Here I gave you y is what? 0. I gave you y is equal to 0. So when y is equal to 0, you signed because you like my problem?
No, I was going to.
Oh, okay. All right. When y is equal to 0, we have 0 equals x squared plus 2x plus 1, which means we have to solve for x. Well, this factors as x plus, times what? You got it. So you get the same answer, but it's just repeated. So you get x plus 1 equals 0, or x equals -1. So here we have a -1. So the point that corresponds to x being -1 and y being 0 is -1, 0. So then we plot -1, 0. Figure out the rest. Which one do you want me to do with you?
The next one, so we have one of each.
You have one of each, so 1?
Yes.
Okay. So when you have x is equal to 1, we want to figure out what y has to be. Can you still see that? Okay. So when I'm doing this for bullets on the side to separate the steps, the cases. When x is x is equal to 1, we want to figure out what y is. We would then have y is equal to 1 quantity squared. Notice I put that 1 in parentheses. Plus 2 times 1 plus 1. What are we using? We are using the blue highlighted, right? And so then we get y is equal to 1 squared, which is 1, plus 2 plus 1, which gives us 4. So this blank here is 4. What's the corresponding point? 1, 4. And then we plot 1, 4. So go over 1 and go up 4. work it just like you work the phone. You got it?
Yeah.
Did you press record?
Yes, I did.
Just talk loud where everybody can hear you.
Okay, so the first thing I did was plugged in -3 for the x's. So how I'm gonna do x squared plus 2x. Then it'll be.
So which line are you solving?
Oh, I'm solving -3. Well, yeah. They are right big.
Just so you can navigate. Pause it for a second.
So I'm doing. Oh yeah, I can see. Okay, I'm doing this one. All right. So -3 squared plus 2 -3 plus 1. Oh, plus 1. You want me to stop right here or where did she go? Oh,
I'm over here. You keep
sorry.
going. You explaining it. If y'all have questions, what do you do? Ask. If you need to help, what do? You ask or you help, right? Okay.
Okay, so -3 squared is 9. Plus 2 -3 is -6. Oh snap! How do you erase it? Is this it?
It's the bar. You got it?
So it's -6 plus 1, which equals 4. Yeah. So then there'll be 4 up here. And then we're going to graph it. So it'll be.
What's the corresponding point?
What's
the point?
Oh, negative. Oh, shit. Dang. Golly.
That's good.
Okay. Comma 4.
Good.
And then you're going to graph it. So it will be -3 on the x-axis. And then 4 on the y-axis. Which gets you right here.
Good.
All right. That's it?
It's up to you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do 2. I'm gonna write x squared plus 2x plus 1, and then I'm gonna plug in 2 for the x's. 2 squared is 4, plus 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 equals 5. Wait, no, hold on. 9. So it's gonna be 2, 9. There we go. Okay.
What's the corresponding point?
2, 9. And I'm gonna go right 2 and up 9. Right here.
Okay, so we're solving for x blank y equals 1. So you're going to write the equation. Whoa, that's too big. So it would be 1 equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then you're going to move the 1 on the left-hand side to the right-hand side, so you will subtract the 1. And then this will be 0 equals x squared plus 2x. And what these, what is the thing he's called?
It's okay.
Well, what the terms have in common is an x, so you can factor out an x. So it'll be x, and then it'll be x plus 2. So since the x equals 0, so you have an x that already equals 0, so you can just write that. I'm going to just write that on the side. X equals 0. And then x plus 2 equals 0, so we're going to subtract the 2. And then x will equals -2. So for the coordinates, it would be 0, -2, and then you'll plug it in. So the first coordinate would be 0 and 1. So you stay on the x-axis with 0, and then you apply and 1. And then for the second one, it would be, huh?
You said x is 0.
Oh, yes.
And y
It's
is?
1.
So
So,
does it go there?
no.
Okay, so erase it. Good, where does it go?
X equals 0, y equals 1.
Very good.
And then for the second point, it would be -2 for x, and then y equals 1. So you go to the left 2 points, and then go up 1. And then there is your plots.
And then you do what?
Connecting.
Yep.
Sorry, y'all, my handwriting.
All right, everybody
quick.
gets the idea? So excellent job. So now, if we have 2 points, how do we find the distance between them? So now we're transitioning into distance and midpoint. So if we have 2 points, how do we find the distance between them? So here, I plotted 3 points. X1, Y1 is this first point. X2, Y1 is the second point. Notice that they have the same Y coordinate. And this is X2, Y2, okay? Now, if we have, notice that these have the same Y. So technically, you have this line. And then here, you have that line. And you have this line. A right triangle, right? Which you know, okay? So the distance from here to here, I'm labeling, that is the absolute value of x2 minus x1. So that's the distance between the x's. The vertical here is the distance between our what? From here to here is the distance between your y's, right? So we write the absolute value of y2 minus y1. So if we know this, and we want to find this distance, because you identified this as a right triangle, we use that to find this distance. So the question is, what is this side? Okay, this side is really coming from the fact that this is a right triangle and we know the Pythagorean theorem. We get D is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1, that quantity squared, plus the quantity y2 minus y1 squared. And it's okay for us to drop the absolute values there because we're squaring it. So that's distance. This is the distance. Okay? So, to officially define it, the distance formula, the distance between 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2 in the Cartesian plane is given by D equals the square root of the quantity x2 minus x1 squared plus the quantity y2 minus y1 squared. That's how we find the distance. When we're also talking about distance, we talk about midpoints. Okay? So, what does it look like graphically? If we have a line segment, how do we find the midpoint? So if you have this point x1, y1 and this point x2, y2, how do we find this point? Say it again. No, because that's slope. Say it again. Be respectful. Go ahead. So that's a good thought, right? You said take y2 minus y1 and divide it by 2, and then take x2 minus x1 and divide it by 2. Do we have to subtract the x's?
Yeah.
No. If we subtract in the x's, we're finding the distance. So we add them. You got it. So to find the midpoint, find the x coordinate, you will take the x1 plus the x2
and you divide it by 2, and then you would take the y1 plus the y2 and divide it by 2. That's your midpoint. Okay? So if you want to see how we get this, so it comes from the fact that you know that this point here is going to be, as we had it above, x2 comma y1, right? So we know that. We know that, okay? So the midpoint of this line would be given by, so this midpoint there is given by taking the sum of x1 and x2, dividing it by 2, comma, y sub 1. If you want the midpoint of this line, whoops. If you want the midpoint of this line, that's given by x2, comma, y1 plus y2, all of that over 2. So then if you want the red point, which is the midpoint of the line in question, then it's given by this. That's what we have. So there's your midpoint formula. Your midpoint formula, let's define it. The midpoint between 2 points x1, y1 and x2, y2 in the Cartesian plane has the following coordinates. x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. You got it. So now the last thing we want to do is apply it. We want to apply those with actual points. Okay? Right? So the application of it. Part A, in example 3, we want to determine the distance between the points 5, 6 and -3, -2. So remember, you have D is equal to the square root of x, what was it?
X2.
X sub 2?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all good. Go ahead.
Minus X sub 1.
Quantity squared. Plus
Sub 2.
Mm-hmm.
Minus Y sub 1. Quantity squared.
Good. So we have that. The other formula you need for part B is midpoint. So you have x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. You want a minute to try it?
Okay, so we use the distance. We use the distance formula. So the way I do it, I do D equals, and I put -3
Talk a little louder.
minus 5 squared. Don't mind my handwriting, y'all.
You can read it. Just
plus-
talk loud.
And then you do -2.
That's not a 1, that's a parenthesis. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry, y'all.
You good.
-2 and then -6 squared. And then I just like added those. I brought them down before I squared them, so I did, it was -8 squared plus -8, I think, yeah, -8 squared.
What needs to go around? Yep.
Put the radical over that, and then I ended up squaring the 8, and I got 64 plus 64, and that gave me 8 square root of 2.
Very good. How did you get that 8?
I just added it, like, I don't know how to explain. Like, I just added it. Like, I don't know. I did the 64 plus 64 on my calculator, and it gave it to me.
120 what?
120. I think it was like 128.
It
something
is.
like that.
That's correct. Did you pause it? Very Part B. The midpoint of the line segment joining 5, 6, and -3, -2. We use the midpoint formula to find it. So we get that the midpoint is equal to, we'll have the x1, which is 5 plus negative 3 over 2, comma, 6 plus negative 2 over 2. That's equal to
2 over 2,
2 over 2. See, you could volunteer to do that. 2 over 2, comma.
4 over 2,
Good. Simplify, we get
1 over 2.
1, comma 2. Excellent. That's your midpoint. That's your midpoint. Questions? Okay. That is 3.1. That's 3.1.